Hello, Hola, Konnichiwa, Salaam, Ciao Namaste. Peace to all. This is the Pink Elephant in the Room conversation. And what we will be discussing for today is about your beyond cosmic abilities of who you really are. We're going to go over at least about 5 to 6 abilities you have and just the simple science of them and how is it possible you are capable of this even in the first place. And we're going to begin with simply your omnipresence. How are you omnipresent? When we see omnipresence, we most of the time think of some omnipotent being that is beyond everything. A human could never possibly be like that, is what we think. Now, how is it possible that you could be omnipresent? And by the way, omnipresent in a sense means being present in several places at once. Now, I'm going to give you simple science as to how that works. The simplicity is that, first of all, you again are a soul. Now, you may think to yourself, okay, I get that, but what does that have to do with me being in several places at once? Well, being that you are a soul, you have the ability, which is quite interesting, for example, to split yourself from yourself, both physically in the physical world and outside of the physical world, what you call life. What we see before me, my this whole area and everything, or wherever you live, is considered as the physical. While you sleep, I I always had this theory of how is it possible that you time travel, and we'll get into that one in a minute. But because it did make sense that if you were able to sleep and yet the soul left, how are you still alive? Would be the question. Well, the soul, in sense, splits itself from you. Kind of like how a bubble splits itself into another bubble, or an amoeba splits itself into something else. You are capable of sustaining this body while splitting away from this body. And you do that for a certain reason, and I'll tell you that actually in our next abilities of what you have. But you usually are able to split yourself. Now, many people have done this in several ways where they've been some type of person. For example, I'll give you my example of how I've seen this happen. Where I've meditated, for example, and realized that I was someone else, whether it be a little child, whether it be a husband or a wife who's married. I've been several things. How you can feel this type of energy is usually by the simple fact of simply feeling it. It's an interesting thing when you feel like you're someone else in a sense. And you might be thinking, what do you mean by feeling like someone else? What I mean by that is whatever you felt in that moment, being whoever you were, or if you felt it was a dream, is most likely who you are, at least a part of who you are. So you might think to yourself, how is that possible or anything? But you have to think to yourself, this is all a game of remembering. And what I had experienced with several other people and beings was the fact that I was them and I was connected to them in some way, shape, or form. And I could never seem to understand how that was possible, except for the simple fact that you are energy. Energy cannot be destroyed. Whether you call it a soul, energy, or whatever, atoms, whatever you'd like to call it, you are energy. And energy is capable of splitting itself and being in several places at once. But the greater meaning of this is that You are the collective, and yet you are the one. One mind, one way or another. You are connected to everything, one way or another, because of the energy of who you are. There's only one technical soul out there, but it is split into several souls, allowing you then to even play a bigger role in remembering who you are. And the more you can remember who you are, the more you can understand these parts of who you are. You Most of us may think, well, after I die, this is it, but you have to remember there's more before, more after that. And on top of that, there are more versions of you. And even if you didn't see it from that perspective, there are other ways you can surely see that you're one way for everything, which leads into the number 2 point, being omni clairvoyant. Oh, you probably thinking to yourself, I've heard of clairvoyance, or maybe you haven't heard clairvoyance at all, or you're thinking to yourself, I've heard of clairvoyance, but what the heck is omni clairvoyance? What I would say omni clairvoyance is simply not only seeing into the future, but going beyond the future. This is a very interesting thing, and I love when I was actually building upon understanding this theory of it. When we hear about clairvoyance, it usually is someone who's capable of predicting the future. What omni clairvoyance does is go past that. It is the ability, kind of like hockey, to go past your observation, beyond your observation. Clairvoyance, many people might see certain things that happen in the future, but the tricky part about that is, and I always question people about this, if you ever hear anyone who ever says, oh, the world's coming to an end or anything, someone predicted it and they're psychic or they're clairvoyant or this and that, the question you have to ask yourself is which timeline. I won't go into this too much. In fact, maybe I'll go into this tomorrow on timelines. But to just keep it basic and short, some of these clairvoyants are seeing the correct future, but which timeline? Because there are different areas. So they are seeing a future, but it might not be the future that is physically in this timeline, in this plane, in this universe. Omni clairvoyance, what it does is simply this: it allows you to see all, if not many, different universes and what futures or what past, present, or futures you've seen before that you may not be able to see here very clearly. It allows you to also see here as well. It allows you to also see what's going on outside your planet. It allows you to actually go beyond that. For me, I'm still learning that. I can see my futures and my other versions of myself. And of course, I've had a few specks of other realities and more, as well as remembering, of course. But what omni clairvoyance does is allow you to see each and every different thing that either happens to you. If you go further, of course, it allows you to see beyond that, both cosmic, both in your galaxy, on your terrain, and so on and so forth. The reason why I find this so exciting is because of the fact that it allows you to see everything for what it is, allowing you to know yourself to be everything. That everything at the end of the day has actually already happened, and yet at the same time is happening now, because it is simply, if you've ever played a video game, like for example, a good video game I know is from Telltale. Telltale is known for their video games of creating these games where they always have choices, and each choice makes a different choice or reality of what could possibly happen. So we have the same ability, but the difference is you have several plethora of choices, and it's up to you what you decide and what you create. And many of us may feel like, well, I either only have this one or this one. But if you go beyond that, you can see that there are always other choices and that everything is relative to everything. It is all a choice of what you decide and what you create that makes up what is the possibility of what could happen in any future you create. This is your omniclairvoyance. Now, the question might be, of course, well, how am I able to do this, or how would I possibly be able to do this? The way I would suggest, in my own experience at least, that I've learned to fluently, because for me, it's a lot different. I was technically just literally born with this. I've had this since I was a little child, where I can predict things. But most of the time, it had to do with me predicting things in my surrounding area or things that were happening with me. What I would suggest to people who are trying to grow their own clairvoyancy is, first of all, understanding that you are one with everything. It's vitally important because you need to be able to connect to all energy. If you are disconnected from all energy, you will not be able to truly see past what you desire, being able to see everything for what it really is. When you are one with everything, you are connected to that entire energy. It is like putting circuits inside of a computer and now it's connected to the motherboard or whatever you call it. I know that's not the correct wording, but it allows you to be connected to the server in a sense. You are connected then to the server of everything in the entire universe, in the entire omniverse and multiverse, so on and so forth. You are connected to all that. Meditation would be the second part of growing that and understanding that part of you. Because, of course, you need to go within who you are and understand yourself first. It starts with you first, like I said yesterday, with just simply loving yourself. When you are loving who you are first and understanding the connection of everything around you, it allows you to soak in that energy. When you are disconnected, for example, the person who claims themselves to be God and they fall, they try to fly off a building or something, will not fly. And there is a big purpose as to why. Because, in a sense, what you resist persists. If you do not see yourself as one with the entire world, with the entire galaxy, with the entire universe, then you will not be connected to that energy force, is what I would call it. You will not be connected to it at all. You have to be connected to it because it allows you to grow your abilities beyond that. You see yourself as those things that are already having those abilities. You see yourself as the lowest of the low and the highest of the high, and you are now connected to the energy force of who you truly are